most Australians, regardless of their background and religious affinity, they support Israel. They see Israel as a good thing. They see Israel as a success story, as a miracle that was able to fight its way into existence, and it's holding on to a little tiny sliver of land, and it is the homeland of the Jewish people. I think that's what most Australians would think. Where I think it is unfortunate is that there appears to me to be a bit of complacency towards and too much tolerance towards extremist views in Australia. And that I think is regrettable from two reasons. One, because it isn't fair. It isn't fair towards Australian Jews to be singled out, to be harassed, to be intimidated. It isn't fair, and other Australians, I think, should do more in order to take a stand and say, no, this isn't what we stand for. This isn't Australia. Australia is a beacon of freedom, of fairness, of politeness, of being respectful to your neighbor, and being accommodating and positive. That, in my mind, is what Australia is about. That and fierce competitors in sports and many other things and the outdoors. But really, politically speaking, that's what I believe Australia to be. And as such, I would expect everyday Australians, and I would expect Muslims to do the same and say, listen, this isn't, I don't stand for this. I don't agree with it. I may not be a biggest fan of Israel and all of its policies, and sure, I have criticisms of our policies and government, like everyone has. But at the end of the day, if you boil it down, it is a democracy fighting for its survival against very dark and very evil ideologies, and it should be an easy choice. And for Australians, yes, it's far away on the other side of the world, and who cares? I can understand people. But in terms of how non-Jewish Australians look at this, and when they see these negative, hateful events happening, I would expect Australians to do a little bit more and have more moral clarity and say, well, no, this isn't what I stand for. This is un-Australian. The behavior of those two nurses at a
Baystown Hospital.
Baystown Hospital, that is un-Australian. That isn't what people around the world would think is normal and acceptable in Australia. And I think they should be made an example of. People in Australia, leaders, politicians, who say, this is very severe. We are going to take severe, significant action against them in order to make the point that this is absolutely unacceptable in Australian society, in our public health services, for anybody to espouse these kinds of hateful views towards anyone. If a Jew said it, I doubt he would say it, but if a Jew would say it, horrible, should be punished just the same way. It has no place, that kind of violence and abuse of power and hatred based on just the religion of someone. And I think that's lacking. What I've heard from Australian legislators isn't what I want to hear from them in terms of a moral standing.